Yeah, quite a clack. Uh, Hi there. Long time no see. And not only this, but today we have to sport our own uh, branded t shirt, courtesy of mom, who liked the fact that her son is on TV. So much that she gifted me with a t shirt with myself, basically. So, what better occasion to wear this t shirt if not on camp? Right? Inception, wall within the wall. So, basically, today I am going to go down memory lane on a trip, wild trip, and tell you guys how I basically, you know, stopped like playing all of the instruments that I was fascinated with before the guitar came along, and what made me decide to finally put them down and stick with guitar only, although it was a very, very, very hard thing to do for me. So let's go to the beginning. So for some weird reason, music was always like one of the biggest parts of my life. I have no idea why. I I guess I was just born with this affinity, if you will. And I remember when I was little, like back in when I was 3 years old, we got our first color TV set. For those of you who are living in the U.S., it might be like some BS statement, but for us down here, previously living under the communist days, it was quite a big thing back then. And back in 1992, 3 years after the regime collapsed, we had our first color TV. And with our color TV came the opportunity to actually have access to foreign channels and stuff like this. And amongst those channels, we had the famous MTV, right, music television, and along with Cartoon Network, which was it's a different story. But with MTV, I became obsessed, like instantly. And although I was just a toddler, basically at 3 years old, we had around the house we had this stereo cassette player, and conveniently also recorder. It was like a double decker, if you remember the old tape recorders. And my mom just basically seeing that I was so obsessed, and every time there was like a music video on TV, I was just obsessed with it. And like within the first few days, I already had like my favorite hits, and I was like jumping up and down whenever those songs came up. She basically just showed me that we could record them so that when those songs wouldn't be aired on MTV, we could still listen to them. So she showed me, this magic trick where you would put this plastic thing in and you would press record, and if you would position it in front of the TV, you would capture the awesome sound of music. So needless to say, I kind of spent my youth doing this, recording like a gazillion cassettes from with MTV music. And basically I was so obsessed with it. And one of my early obsessions in terms of instruments was the piano. And I remember, because I was about 7, and there was like this craze going on back in the 90s with computers rising up, and they were now the talk of the trade basically. And there were like these rumors about these magnificent things called computers that you could have and blah blah blah, and you could play games and whatever. And as much as I was a game maniac, because I had like the Nintendo Famicons and all that stuff, I remember specifically my mom once told me, because we were like all of us back then, working class, flat out broke. And I remember she asked me one day, like, if we would ever have the money to buy one of them, what would I choose? Would I choose a computer or would I choose a piano? Well, piano, like electronic piano, because pianos were like extremely expensive, right? They were like a fortune. And I remember I thought about it for like a minute or so, and I was like, no, piano, I want a piano. But back then it wasn't like today where things were so affordable. So I remember she took me to this music school / whatever, and the instructor there, the music teacher, the piano teacher, welcomed me, and he asked me, what do I want to do, what do I want to play, and I told him I would like to learn piano, and he gave me like this basic weird thing. It was like a rhythm test. He gave me his cigarette lighter, not to smoke, but he gave me this cigarette lighter, and he tapped a rhythm, whatever, a little bit more complex but super basic. I don't remember what it was, and he tapped this rhythm on the table, and he asked me to reproduce it with the lighter just to see if I have good ear and stuff like this. And he was like, yeah, he's a good kid, but if I take him in, he'll have to practice, and in order for him to do that, he needs to practice at home, because here you'll only bring him like once or twice a week, right? Mostly in the weekends. But he would need a piano at home. So sadly, that was kind of like the end of my music tuition for many years to come. And again, back then you couldn't just walk into a store and just get like a cheap Casio keyboard or whatever. It would have been possible in other parts of the world, but not for us. Like for us, it was either you had the fortune of having some family heritage with some expensive piano, left as a family legacy, and in that case, you were pretty much not that broke in terms of a family, or you would be like one of those musician whatever family who had at least one active member in the family, traveling abroad, playing abroad on cruise ships and stuff like this. And like even keyboards, electronic keyboards were back then way over 1,000 euros and dollars or whatever. And just to give you like some sort of comparison, you could probably get a car for that money. So it wasn't like the $1,000 of today. So needless to say, I kind of stopped there because there wasn't pretty much anything I could do. So I drifted along until my mid-teens, like around 15, 16, when all of a sudden, like, we were in the 2000s, and the electronic market was coming to fruition, and you could basically now go out and buy crappy cheap gear just to satisfy your needs. And I started doing this, and I started buying like keyboard after keyboard after keyboard. Not because now we have money, but because each keyboard was extremely crappy, and I remember like many of the cheap keyboards couldn't even play more than 2 or 3 notes at a time. Like if you would press a combination of keys, like any sort of chord that has 3 or more keys, it just would block and wouldn't do anything. And some were completely out of tune, and they sounded very dissonant when you would combine keys and stuff like this. So I basically began this buying and trading keyboard after keyboard until I kind of had like a decent keyboard lying around. But nevertheless, as I continued to grow a bit older and I started having like a bit more of my own money and stuff like this, I was still like a maniac, and I was always chasing like better sounds and better sounds, because now I was over the period where I had like completely unplayable keyboards. Now I was in the search for better sound, and my go-to choice back then was Yamaha. Like Yamaha keyboards were the best, at least in that price range for me. They sounded the most realistic, so I ended up trading a lot of Yamaha guitars and stuff like this. Again, back then there was like a hit and miss. Some of the cheap ones wouldn't even have like velocity touch response. They would all be with the same velocity, if you know what I'm talking about. So anyway, I'm now this crazy fan, like this fanatical fan of just owning and trading keyboards and not really being good at it. I mean, sure, I had a lot of fun with playing, but I wasn't good at all. And one of the biggest blockers for me in terms of playing the piano or the keyboards was the fact that I found it very hard for me to play a completely different rhythm on the left hand than on the right hand. Like if they would be on the same beat, with enough practice maybe I could get it, but when you would have like odd measures and stuff like this, it was completely impossible. It's also something that I'm struggling with at guitar when I have to play the guitar and sing at the same time, because a lot of songs have quite a diverse thing going on the vocal track compared to the guitar track. Some of them match exactly on the beat and they're a bit easier, but anyway, granted, I'd never spent any sufficient amount of time to really give it my best and see if it was something that I could overcome or not. But I kind of just stuck there at the frustration level of why is this so hard and this is just bullshit. So I ended up spending most of my time just noodling around with very cool sounds, piano sounds, with not just piano because that was just the classical sound, but electronic sounds and synth pads and choir pads and all these amazing ethereal sounds, like the ones you get on MIDI keyboards with the VSTs and stuff like this. But anyway, so yeah, I was just this crazy fan of music with an emphasis on keyboards as my instrument, and my favorite choice of music was always movie soundtracks, like scores of movies that basically build my whole childhood. So things like all of the Sylvester Stallone movies, or Home Alone, or I don't know, The Time Machine, and many others that I won't even begin to mention because there are just so many. Like any almost any composition by Hans Zimmer or Danny Elfman or so many more. So as I was messing around with the piano, I also developed like a great appreciation and then obsession with having to own a pan flute. I became obsessed with the pan flute sound, and obviously they come in many variations. The Romanian one, the let's say South American one, and the ones in Asia, the ones in Africa, and so on and so forth. They have slightly different variations in terms of their construction and sound. I also began to like the idea of harmonicas. So now with the harmonica and the flute, the pan flute, I was also into wind instruments. Duduk, the Armenian duduk, was something that just completely blew my mind ever since I first heard it in the score of the Crow movie. If you don't know what the Armenian duduk is, I highly recommend you stop this video, pause it, or after this video, you just Google something on YouTube for Armenian duduk, D-U-D-U-K, right? Anyway, I'll be leaving some links in the description, and yeah, I just had like a lot of instruments that I was really interested in, but I never quite got anywhere. I was more like a fan, messing around with cool sounds and stuff like this, because I always had like an incredible ear for music and sounds and how they relate to each other, and I could just compose endless crap out of nowhere, but I never really mastered any instrument, right? So it was kind of frustrating. And a bit fast forwarding, just out of nowhere, me and my girlfriend, she kind of dragged me along to this concert of hers, which was, Bon Jovi, one of the bands that I hated when I was a kid, because I remember specifically, I was like in middle school probably, and Bon Jovi was at their second or third peak in their career in terms of their genre, or the way their genre evolved over time. So now they were into this like early 2000s sound, having hits like It's My Life and the whole Bounce album and stuff like this. And I just hated it, not because of the music or because of the band itself. It's just that I inherently hated them because all of the girls were crazy about Bon Jovi in my classroom, and they kind of nullified all of my attempts to engage with them in any sort of conversation or whatever, because we had like this stupid fancy TV in our school, and every break we had, they had it on the music channel, and it was like Bon Jovi and bands like these, and all the girls were like, pre-teen, teen period, where they're like 12, 13, 14, whatever, and they're just going crazy for the John Bon Jovi's or the Brad Pitts or whatever from the movie side of things. And this kind of put us 12-year-olds dorks in the nerd section automatically. Like, didn't matter what you did or how you looked or how you acted, you couldn't compare with John Bon Jovi or Tom Cruise or whatever, right? So I hated them for this, and it kind of got stuck in my brain that Bon Jovi was like this girl, teenage girl oriented band, targeting that fan base, and it was like girl music, and I just hated it. And here we are, like decade and something later with my girlfriend, and she drags me along to this concert, and I'm like, Bon Jovi, how am I going to even live through this ordeal, right? So we go in, and we're waiting for the opening, and as soon as they open the concert, this wall of fucking sound just like hits me in my head, and I'm like, what the hell is that thing, right? Because it wasn't like, again, because I was this keyboard guy in my mind, for me that was like some heavy electronic sound, but I couldn't get what it was. And I naturally looked at the keyboard player, who at that time I didn't even know. I didn't know anyone from the band except for John Bon Jovi. And I looked towards David Bryan without even knowing who he is, and I was like, his hands don't seem to be doing this, so who the hell is doing this? And to my what's the word? Well, to my whatever, insert mixed feelings here, I see this guy on stage with a guitar strapped around his neck, seeming to, kind of produce these sounds because they kind of matched his hands. But I was like, he's playing a guitar. How the fuck is he generating those guitar sounds that don't sound at all like a guitar? And just to let you in on how uneducated I was in terms of the guitar sound and the whole, plethora of sounds that you can get out of a guitar, especially the electric guitar, for me that was like, it can't be, right? Because, by the way, I forgot to mention, all throughout my childhood, I hated guitar. So not only did I hate Bon Jovi, but I hated guitar. And why did I hate guitar? Because in my mind, guitar was the acoustic guitar that, crappy musicians play. They sound out of tune, they sound horrible, and they just bust your brains open every time you go on a camping trip, sitting around the campfire and just playing the same hula la crap. So for me, that was like a hipster instrument of choice, and I wanted to have nothing to do with it. It was like, for me, that wasn't even producing like music. That was just the poor man's choice when it came to music. The pure one was the piano and stuff like that, right? So getting back to the guy on stage, Richie, right, who was seemingly producing these interesting sounds, kind of got flabbergasted a bit, and I was like, nope. It's, because like I was so in love with the sound, and I had like this love and hate feeling inside of me happening at 200 miles per hour. Like, how come, this thing that I hate, the guitar, being played by these guys from Bon Jovi, who I hate as a band for the reasons I mentioned before, how can they produce these emotions in me? And why isn't it, at least coming from the keyboards? Why is it the guitar that's shocking me so much? And just to give you an idea, they opened the whole concert. The very first song was "Raise Your Hands," right, from Slippery When Wet. And again, I didn't know anything about them. Couldn't name the song. Couldn't name anything. And I remember I was so obsessed with it, and it had such a huge impact on me, being especially played in the beginning, in the opening of the song, because that's where you go like from dead silence, only with people talking around you, to like the very first like sound wave that hits your brain, and that's like the make or break thing. Had they opened with a different song, although all of their discography is just as amazing, maybe it wouldn't have had this impact on me. But that particular song, the intro of Raise Your Hands, not to mention the solo that follows soon after in the middle of the song, that just completely fucked my brains off, man. Like, I was like, nope, I don't care about this concert, I'll stay here, but as soon as I go home, I need to look up what that song is, who that man is, what these guys are really about, because I need to get down to the bottom of this, right? So the whole show plays out. I love their songs, but I'm still obsessed with this very first song, right? So I go back home and I'm like researching, and after a short while I discover it's Raise Your Hands, and now I see who the guitarist is, and it's like, okay, it's Richie Sambora. Coincidentally, he had a birthday on that tour, and when they played for us that night, he was one day away from his birthday, and people were like, happy birthday Richie, like they sang for him, the whole audience, the whole public. So now I was like, okay, this guy's Richie Sambora, let's find out everything that I can about Bon Jovi, and let's find everything that I can about Richie Sambora, right? So within the next few days, a week, whatever, month, I become just, obsessed with Bon Jovi, their whole fucking discography. And also I dive deep into Richie Sambora's solo albums and solo career, and combining Raise Your Hands with my brand new discovery from his solo album, which is One Light Burning. Again, if you don't know One Light Burning by Richie Sambora, just Google it. I'll leave all the links in the description, plus some extra bonuses. Make sure you check out the description down below. Now I'm like, Raise Your Hands plus One Light Burning. Fuck it. Like, if this is what the guitar can produce, I want to at least give it a try. So, needless to say, I go online, secondhand instruments and stuff like this, and I start searching, because I don't want to spend like my money on a brand new guitar, because I don't even know anything about guitars, right? So I don't want to go spending around anything on a guitar. I just kind of want to give it a try and sort of convince myself that it's not for me, because I don't want to let go of my piano, right? So this is what I did. I went online and I found like the cheapest fucking classical guitar that I could find, and it was like a guitar in such bad shape that the bridge and the whole front of the guitar, like the bridge came off, because the owner, now looking back, he was a fucking idiot, and he put acoustic strings with a lot higher tension on the classical guitar. The bridge is not made to withstand that tension. The bridge just popped off and probably spanked him in his face. So he just decided to like put some nails, not screws, nails, to nail down the fucking bridge in the guitar, resulting in the guitar just having its front face cracked and split open, and it was like the most horrible things. But this guitar was something like, I think, $8 or $9 if I convert it to bucks. For us it was like 30 in local currency. So let's say for you guys out there in the US, imagine you would pay $30 on a guitar, although it was, for our currency, was a lot lower. Just imagine you spent 30, imagine you spent 50, it's still a shit guitar, right? So, by the way, I still, although I owned over 70 something guitars throughout my life already, because like I have them all referenced in this Excel table that I constantly update. Although I had over 70 guitars and I sold most of them, and now only have like the elite bunch of guitars that I have with me. This very guitar I never sold. It's still here with me, and it awaits for some restoration. I don't want to invest like anything and like redoing the front. I just want to modify it in a very wacky yet effective way. You'll see it in the future video when I finish it. I'll even convert it into an electroacoustic, electroclassical guitar. So I buy this guitar, right? It's completely unplayable. Can't do jack shit with it. I buy another classical guitar. It's kind of like meh, you know. The whole neck is super wide and stuff like this. I'm a beginner. The action is super high. I'm like, fuck it. I see that the acoustic guitar has, metal strings, and the neck is a lot slimmer. I'm like, yeah, I'm going with the acoustic. I buy the acoustic. Again, super cheap acoustic. The neck was bent like this, like a fucking boat. I had no idea. Like, I was completely unaware. So I couldn't play anything. Like, the action was about this high without any exaggeration, because like someone told me, like, who the fuck sold you this guitar? Are you insane? He ripped you off completely. So I tried to like fix it or remedy it or whatever. No chance. So I basically kind of like think to myself, well, see, this thing, like with the classical, I kind of like the sound of it, but apart from Antonio Banderas, whom I've seen in Desperado, he was the only mariachi who looked cool, because all the other guys had like the wacky sombrero and shit like that. No one was as cool as Banderas, right? And it kind of looked awkward and funky, like sitting on a chair with like a footstool and having to grow your fucking nails and just ding 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 ding. That wasn't for me. So I tried very hard to love it, but I couldn't cling on to many things apart from the fact that Banderas was cool in Desperado when he was playing it. So gave the acoustic a try. Remember, the acoustic was the thing that I hated the most when I was a kid. Still wasn't the thing for me, because I couldn't let go of that feeling that it's like a shitty thing to play around the campfire. I didn't yet know that you could do some really cool things with the acoustic, including the things done by Bon Jovi and Richie, right? But I was like so focused on my past emotions towards it, I decided no. So at one point, there's this guy on the internet who is like selling an electric guitar, a Strat copy, and he is also offering a trade if someone has one or even two non-electric guitars, because he has two daughters, young kids, and he's saying that they're fighting for that one guitar, and he wants two of them, and the electric guitar is not something that he wants for necessarily for girls. They'd much rather he would much rather see them play girl type of guitars, in his opinion, which were acoustic or classical. So I'm like, hey, I have these two cheap crap acoustics. Why don't you give me your cheap crap electric? And like that, we had a deal, handshaking. And now I go home with this guitar, and it's just as crappy, but like I go home with it, and I'm like, fuck it, I guess I need an amp, right? Because everyone's like saying you can't play it unplugged. I kind of gave it a try, and it was like super hard and whatever. And I kind of, decide to buy an amp, right? So I buy an amp, and again, secondhand amp, and I meet with this guy, and I buy it from him, and just because I was like such a fucking noob back then, I remember seeing on my guitar at home, it had this volume knob, but now I'm looking at this amp, and then I see it has like a fucking volume knob. And I'm asking this dude right before he leaves off. I'm like, hey yo, wait, hey yo, like and here's me trying not to sound too noobish and trying to like make this interesting brain picking session for him, which he probably saw right through. And I'm like, just out of curiosity, like, do you usually prefer to, set your volume from the amp or from the guitar? And he's like, well, it depends on what you want to do. And I'm like, yeah, I know, it's, yeah. So I make a fucking fool out of myself. So I go home and I hook the amp up, and I have no idea what I'm doing. And now I'm starting to like set up my guitar, right? And I start fiddling with all, bolts, screws, nuts, whatever. And within like a short span of time, I'm driving myself nuts already, because I'm like, dude, I figured out how to tune your guitar from 5 different places. And at this point, you might be wondering, like, wait, what? And that's because I saw that you could tune your guitar from the tuning pegs right here, right? But you could also tune your guitar from this weird fucking thing called the truss rod. It's here, but on most guitars it's here. And back then it was here for that particular guitar. And I'm playing with this, and I see that, it completely changes the overall tuning instead of individual strings. And I'm like, so this is like a master guitar tuner. This is like, these must be the individual ones. This must be like the masters. And that was like the second way of tuning. The third way of tuning was, raising or lowering your saddles. And I'm like, whoa, another individual way of tuning each string. And then I'm moving the saddles back and forth, the intonation, right? So this is like the fourth way of changing it. And then it's the control cavity on the back, for the trem, because it had a trem system, very crappy one, obviously. And I'm like messing with the springs, and I'm like, fuck, it's like the fifth or whatever. And I knew, I had a feeling that they were not meant for tuning. It's just that I couldn't really put my finger on what exactly they did. I mean, I saw what they physically did, I just didn't know why you would need to adjust them. But anyway, I very soon figured it out. Just to give you like a feeling of how much of a complete beginner I was when it came to the electric guitar, right? So I even remember, like, when I saw Richie on stage, it didn't occur to me, but then when I got my first electric guitar at home, I was like, fuck, this guitar has no sound hole. That's interesting. And it has these, things here with some magnets. I see how this might be going. So yeah, it's literally like, I was that bad, right? So, anywho, I try to like play something. It's complete crap of a guitar. I can't do much to it. I kind of like try to set it up. It's still, things wouldn't work. And I remember I'm visiting like this buddy of mine in university, and he kind of graduated, and he was like in his master's, or I don't remember, probably even PhD. He started his PhD, and he had his own small office within the lab. And we were friends, and he invites me over, and there's this guitar of another PhD guy who just left it there, and they were using the guitar for acoustic experiments and stuff like this. And he shows me this other Strat, which was again very cheap Strat, but not as cheap as mine. And I pick this guitar up, and I see like the action is like so low. I'm like, dude, like I need to get myself something good. Actually, I'm not sure. Probably I saw his guitar before I got my first guitar, and that's what made me finally go for an electric or something like this. But anyway, you get the idea, right? You get the point. So I saw this guitar of his, which was a Squier, but it was so you can imagine what I had if the Squier was like 10 times better than what I had. Mine, by the way, didn't even have like a biflex truss rod. It only had like the truss rod going in one way, so I couldn't correct the back bow that it had. So after that point, I'm kind of like, you know what? Unfortunately, I had this realization after I started really messing with the electric. I kind of came to the sad conclusion that within my first 2 weeks of playing guitar, I was a lot better than I ever was at the piano. Remember the thing that I told you I couldn't, do things with both hands and stuff like this. For some reason, the guitar with two hands somehow clicked. I have no idea why. Not only this, but I was like, I wasn't just, obviously I was playing by ear, but kind of like the fretboard made more sense theoretically, and I'm not saying theoretically in terms of music theory, because at that point I still didn't know almost anything about music theory except for like the basics of the basics. But it kind of had like a mathematical sense, whereas the keyboard, although you might think it's easier because you have like this octave that keeps on repeating, it's easier from that perspective. But if you look at the piano, the way in which you have to combine the keys, for example, if I ask you to play all the minor chords or all of the major chords in each given key, like for example C, C sharp, D, D sharp, and whatever, all the way back to the octave, the combinations between the white and the black keys are different. However, on the guitar, from this point of view, they're symmetric because there's like no white keys below and black small keys above in order to twist your fingers up and down and stuff like this. So all frets are the same, all strings are the same. So from this perspective, it was a lot easier. And also, I don't know, biomechanically for me, kind of made more sense, and I was getting tunes and small crappy solos and some rhythm sections a lot faster than I ever did on the piano. Like I surpassed all of my years of playing, well, not playing, messing around with the keyboard. I surpassed them on the guitar within like 2 weeks. That was like a sad fucking realization for me, but that was the moment when I realized that I should probably stick with one. I didn't do it instantly, but throughout the first, not even a year, the first 6 months, I completely sold all of my keyboards, and I stuck with guitar only ever since that point. Not only this, in terms of guitar, like I covered in one of my past videos when I helped one of our viewers decide whether or not he should play the acoustic, the classical, or the electrical. I referenced this also in that video. I said that I had this fortunate realization that for me, because I was already starting like late, like super late, I could not afford messing with like the classical, have my nails grow, learn all this finger independence get accustomed with like the footstool, with sitting down, with whatever, with the thicker neck, and play all these Spanish tunes and classic, influenced style in general. Then switch to a pick and whatever. It can be done. Many people did, but I wanted to put like all my eggs in one basket in order to have at least one minute chance of, if not being great or even good, at least being decent enough. Whatever, you get my point, right? So I kind of decided to just stick with the electric guitar because of these reasons that I just told you, and the most important one that I also talked about in my other video that I told you about, links in the description, was that ultimately this is what I wanted to play, right? I wanted to play rock music and metal and blues and stuff like this, so it was all electric driven. So again, fast forward many years later, I always tell people when they start playing guitar, go for the thing that you'll ultimately play. If you think that the acoustic guitar is the mandatory stepping stone towards the electric, I can't even begin to tell you how much of a complete fallacy that is, not to use any worse insults, right? So so I decided to stick with my electric only, and like ever since, that was it, right? I stuck with it, and I did plenty of things. I was like a part of dozens and dozens of bands. Some were completely obnoxious, some were completely crappy, some were decent. Only one of them was quite professional. Crazy journey. Years after starting on this path, I started from the get-go with fixing my guitar and then fixing other people's guitars once I got the hang of it. And then I started modifying them, and then building parts, and then building them, and whatever. I ended up working for Pro Guitar in our country, not the Pro Guitar in the US, but I worked as a luthier slash tech guy slash salesperson slash, you had to do everything that was necessary, but that's another story. Incredible time. I had a chance to give guitar lessons. Amazing times, nostalgic times for me. I got to meet like a lot of my heroes, and like only later did I understand that you should, that saying with never meet your heroes has a lot of truth in it. But let's say some of them were very good exceptions to that rule, incredible exceptions, right? I mean, actually, what motivated me to go and work for Pro Guitar and stuff like this was 1 year prior to this, actually 6 months prior to me deciding to work for them and apply. I met my hero, Michelangelo Badio, MAB, right? So I met him, and like that whole meeting, was such an emotional trip for me that I decided, like basically came home and I was like, you know what, it's now or never, it's all or nothing, all in. It's like I'm either learning how to sweep the strings, sweep the arpeggios, or I'm gonna sweep the streets, I'm gonna go all out, those teenage youth ideals that you have. Like you're taking your $30 in your pocket and you're going out into the world. So I kind of did my own stupid version of that, and I couldn't be more grateful because I ended up from that motivation, I ended up being employed 6 months later as a guitar nerd in that mini guitar universe that the company and store and service were offering. Right, so that was quite a trip. A lot of bands that I was in were a trip. Some were good, some were bad. A lot of heroes that I've met, were fantastic people. Some were not quite, but that's for another beer. Yeah, a lot of ups and downs. My probably in terms of playing, like my highest thing was that I voluntarily kicked my only chance of opening up for Sepultura. So I was like with this one band, the one and only band that I said was, like the most professional one. It was called Hate Mode, and things were really okay with them, but they were no longer okay in my life. I couldn't keep committing myself to the band and to shitloads of other things in my life, plus my new job at the guitar store. So I was like, you know what, if I have to choose, bands will always be there, but this new job that I have at the guitar center, at the guitar shop, it's, at least for now, once in a lifetime experience. I want to focus on this, so I decided to quit the band just so that I find out that 1 month later they got a gig somewhere where they got to open for Sepultura. Me being a fucking Sepultura fan, especially at that time, I was like a maniac. For me, Sepultura was like the big one, and then the big four could suck it in terms of how I saw it, right? So for me, Sepultura and Annihilator were at the top. They were like the top two, without any any ability to decide which one was number one and number two. They were both up there. So yeah, I kind of fucked my own way of opening up for my heroes, right, for Sepultura. That's life. Nice story to tell anyway. Whether I opened for Sepultura and having the story of how I opened for Sepultura, and I have the opposite, right, how I didn't get to open for Sepultura. So I guess years later it doesn't really even matter no more. So yeah, since this video is an all-time record of mine, with the time bar approaching rapidly towards 1 hour, I will let the 0 people that are still watching at this point go and do whatever they have to do and move on with their lives, because by this point, if you're through some weird chance still following, you probably belong to the same family. I just heard some alien rat noises from the other room, so probably that's my signal to stop what I'm doing and go in the other room and get eaten by a giant rat. So until next time, if I don't get completely eaten by the alien rat, thanks for stopping by and listening to my sob happy lifelong story of how I won the Nobel Prize for great guitar inventions. And yeah, let me know what you thought in the comment section below. And again, don't forget to check the description, because it's like filled with links that belong to a lot of things that we discussed about. So hasta luego, till next time.